Okay, what we want to do now is provide feedback to the user when they've done something wrong and they don't meet our validation requirements, and we've got a form status of invalid. So let's take a look at what we need to do to achieve that. So what we'll do, we'll go to our register components, and we'll need to start moving things down inside here because our HTML is going to get a bit busier. So let's just move these down, and we'll start with our input for the username. And what we want to do here is we can use Bootstrap classes inside form inputs, which will give it some styling if the input is not valid, for instance. So what we can specify here is we can use class, and then we can specify a period, and we can specify the class that we want to apply if this expression evaluates to true. So what we're going to do is say class is invalid. And we're going to set this equal to, and then we need to go to our register form and we need to get the control that we're looking for. And in this case, it's going to be username. So in double quotes this time, we'll specify username because I've used single quotes on the outside here. And then what we want to do is get the errors property. And then what we want to do is make sure that the field has actually been touched before we actually display any validation error. So I'm going to say register form.get, and once again we specify the control that we're interested in. So I'm going to say username, and then we can specify touched as what we're looking for here. So let's move this down, and if we go and take a look, and we'll remove the default value from here, so let's take out hello, and if we go and take a look at our browser again and click on register, if we click inside the input and then click out, we can see that this is now surrounded with a red border, and we've got an exclamation mark on the right hand side. So this tells us there's something wrong with the input, but we also need to tell the user and give them some text underneath this to tell them what's wrong. So we'll go back to our component, and underneath the inputs, what we'll do is we'll give it a div, and we'll give it a class of invalid-feedback, a Bootstrap class, and we can say please enter a username. And if we go and take a look at this, what we can see when we click on register, and we'll click in and we'll click out, and now we've got the help text that tells them that they're missing a username. Cool. Okay, so let's go back and let's take a look at our other controls. So this particular input, the password, has more than one validator. So for the username, what we could get away with is just using a single div for this. But let's first of all just copy the class that we need for the input field itself, and I'll just paste this in. And instead of getting the username, we're of course going to get the password and the password here as well. And let's just copy this div as well and paste it below the input. So we want to check to see if the field's been touched, and we want to display the red border. That's fine, but what about the different types of feedback for this particular input? So we're going to need to check inside the error to see what type of error it is, and what we'll do for this, we'll need to add a conditional, and we'll say a-ng if, and we need to give this an expression. So once again, we'll get our register form, and we'll say .get, and then we specify password inside here, and then we say has error, and inside the has error, we can check for the required validation error. And then what we can do inside the validation feedback is we can say please enter a password. And then what we need to do is check our other different types of errors. So what I'm going to do is copy this down 2 more times, and we're going to check for the different errors. So in the second one, what we're going to check for is min length. And this is a bit weird, because this is exactly the casing that we need to check for this particular error. If we go and take a look at our component, when we specified this, min length is camel case. But if we try and use camel case inside our template, then we won't see the validation error. It won't work. It has to be all lowercase. So do be careful with that one. And what we can say in here is that the password must be at least 4 characters. And then what we can do in the third one is we can say max length, and we can say, I'll just copy this text and paste it in, and I'm going to say at most 8 characters. And if we go and take a look, and we'll check our progress as we're going along, and we'll click on register, and we know we get the validation for the username, and if we click out of the password, we get please enter a password. If we start typing, we see that the password must be at least 4 characters, and if we meet the requirements, the validation error goes away, and if we keep typing, then we see our second or third validator that tells us at most 8 characters. Okay, so let's deal with the third one and what we need to do for our custom validator. So I'm just going to once again move this stuff down, and once again we'll just copy the class for the border inside this, and we'll paste it inside the input, and this time we're working with our confirm password. So let's add that for the error and paste that in there. And we've got 2 validators on here, so I'm just going to copy 2 divs from this and paste it inside the input, or below the input. And we need to make sure we're getting our confirm password in both of these. And we can keep the first one, but we'll say please enter a confirm password. And for the third one, what we're looking for here is the name of our validator. So if we take a look at our validator, what did we call this? And the object we're looking for here is the isMatching object. So we'll copy this and we'll paste this inside here, and we'll say password must match password, or more accurately we'll say confirm password must match password. So let's go take a look and see if we got the functionality we're looking for here. So once again we'll click on register, and we know our username's going to validate, we know our password's going to validate, and we'll get the confirmation here. So let's add a password in here, and I'm just calling it test. And if we see this one, then we see our confirm password must match password. And if we type in the correct characters, then we confirm the password. If we actually enter a username, then we get the status of valid. And if we change our confirm password, then we get the validator there as well. Excellent. But I'm sure you're thinking, oh my word, look at all of this HTML to provide that feedback. Pretty busy, right? And we've got another 4 fields to add to our register form. And that means a lot of copying and pasting of all of these validation requirements that we've now added to our template. And you're probably thinking, please tell me there's a better way. And of course there is. And what we're going to take a look at next is the better way. And we're going to take a look at adding our own custom reusable text inputs. And we'll take a look at that next.